As you can understand, I'm in the business of disaster response, and I'm also a cop, a policeman, a law enforcement person. And I know the law enforcement is most usual of the usual suspects in the terms of privacy versus the government. And we have already heard arguments in this panel saying that whatever happens, the data must not go into the hand of the law enforcement. That is very well taken. Being a law enforcement personnel, I think the limitation does apply, and it doesn't really concern us right now. But I have the argument that I'm going to make is from the disaster response point of view. The first thing I must say, and all the 3 points I'm going to make are macro points. The first thing I must say is, across the world, the disaster response law ecosystem, to be otherwise called the humanitarian law ecosystem, which is based on the Geneva Principles, nowhere is privacy embedded in the disaster response law ecosystem. So it is the same for India, and there was some surprise I saw in the media that instead of the Epidemic Act, the Disaster Management Act has been invoked, 2005 has been invoked. Disaster Management Act is the act of which the NDRF, which I head, is the product. So yes, this is the disaster we are facing, and disaster by the nature of it are governance emergencies. All of us understand, because we are in the business of human rights and privacy, etc., we understand that all the rights lie against the state. And when the state is faced with an emergency, the toss-up is between competing rights. It is not as if privacy is an absolute standalone right. There are many rights, and even privacy has been collated or co-located within the rights of life and property by the Honorable Supreme Court, life and liberty, Article 21. So you can see that it is a contested space, and at any point of time, there has to be a priority fixed on what to do. And there is this classic juxtaposition of freedom to and freedom from. And it is anybody's guess. The migrant who is walking away to his home 1,000 miles away, is he looking at freedom to privacy or freedom from some deprivation? So what I'm saying is, I am not about to dismiss privacy. Privacy is very much sacrosanct, is part of the complementary ecosystem. But then sometimes you have to interplay and see what is to be addressed immediately. And probably, as far as Aarogya Setu is concerned, speed and scale was of great importance, and I'm very happy that Arnav explained the whole aspect and also said, almost implied, that it is not as if privacy is being targeted here. Privacy first is still part of the embedded design of that. And while we were still discussing, he did message that the reverse engineering is being taken out, one of the objections. Also that the open source is being opened up again for scrutiny. So everything is a work in progress. And I call this the fallacy of finality. The principles of legality, necessity, proportionality, and safeguards, they are not final principles. It is not as if they are etched in stone and you have to just put the Aarogya Setu into that framework which is ready and fixed. That also is a work in progress. Even the courts have interpreted it severally in different times. And it is the world over. It is not as if in disaster response everywhere things are settled. And I would like to read out something which is from the International Red Cross Handbook on Data Protection in Humanitarian Action, which is very relevant here. I must read this out before I sign off. It says, compliance with personal data protection standards requires taking into account the specific scope and purpose of humanitarian activities to provide for the urgent and the basic needs of vulnerable individuals. Data protection and humanitarian action should be seen as compatible, complementary to, and supporting each other. Thus, data protection should not be seen as hampering the work of humanitarian organizations. On the contrary, it should be of service to their work. Equally, and this I'd like you to focus on, equally, data protection principles should never be interpreted in a way that hampers essential humanitarian work. and should always be interpreted in a way that furthers the ultimate objective of humanitarian action, namely safeguarding the life, integrity, and dignity of the victims of humanitarian emergencies. So they are complementary principles, and I again assert that it is not a finished product. Neither is Aarogya Setu a finished product, nor are the principles by which we argue in the courts a finished product, nor are the depositions in the court or the decrees by the court a finished product, and that is happening across the world. If it were not so, the privacy principles must not be an issue which is coming up on the portals of the court again and again. So just to sum up, one line, last line, that disaster response vis-a-vis protection of private data and privacy is a work in progress, but that does not give the excuse that you must always see a sinister design in the government plan.